Hi there, I'm Morgan Boatman, the director, writer, editor, and producer of this little movie, Princess Isabelle. Today, it's March 24th, 2006, just a few years since Princess Isabelle premiered at Worldfest in November of 1999. There's the first joke right there, the squeezed joke. You may have noticed that it said video cassette in the warning up there. That's because this was made before DVDs were common for home use. Here's my logo. I don't know why, but the audience at the premiere went crazy when my logo showed up on the screen. Here's a VW hubcap. You'll see a lot of that bug throughout the movie. This is me driving that 1971 Elm Green Super Beetle around the neighborhood. For all these shots, the camera is held on to the side of the car by a small tripod and half a dozen bungee cords. That's all it was. Nothing fancy. VW is a good car for that. There's lots of contours and stuff to hook bungee cord hooks to. I bought that VW for the movie, and fixing it up got me back into VWs. And just a year after the premiere, I published my first article in VW Trends magazine. That got me into writing for magazines. Years ago, I had an electric bug. Well, here's Richard at Mary Kate's house. That was her bedroom, and now this is Shelley's house. You can hear the guitar playing. That's Frank Malello. He did all the guitar. He didn't understand why I wanted to record him playing without the amp on. I just wanted the sounds of the strings, because I used it for this, where Kyle is playing without amplification. Right there, I consider that a disruptive mistake. When Kyle seems to vanish in this shot. There he is in the window, but I should have had the shot of him getting into the car. Here we are at Pulliam Airport. We just walked in and asked people to help out. We could never do this today with Homeland Security and all that. There's Laura's voice. Here we are upstairs at the airport. A week before, I asked permission, and the woman said, "Oh yeah, we could come in and do whatever we want as long as we didn't get in the way." Upstairs at Flagstaff Airport is perfect because no one ever goes up there. We were all over the airport for a few hours. Later that day, after we were done with the airport, we went to shoot young Emery's birthday party with Max DeMilner. After a lot of difficulty with Richard's lines in this scene, we resorted to cue cards. We didn't really have an option. That made it hard to edit, too, because he's always looking off screen a little bit. But you do what you have to do. Remember that this is very nearly the first feature-length project ever shot on DV anywhere. We used the just-released Sony VX1000. It changed the world of video production, man. Everything was new. Audio was the biggest problem, all the way through the production and post-production. The editing software in 1998 didn't even have VU meters for audio. It was all a guess. You had to edit your long-format show in 10-minute segments and then assemble them afterwards. On this special edition, I fixed a lot of the problems, but there are some I would have to totally reconstruct the movie to fix, so they remain endearing flaws.
Well, goodbye, son. I'll see you both in a few days. Bye, Rosie.
Weeks later, Marianne Eder got me on the field to shoot the UPS plane taking off. You can see it's actually a cargo plane. The pilot is actually waving the plane at me. I had one chance to get that shot. Marianne is actually in there. Marianne was a great help all through the production. She's the one sticking her tongue out while she's playing the guitar in the outtakes reel.
With a
I wanted the planes visible through the great big window back there, but I couldn't get enough light on the actors and I wasn't prepared to gel the windows. Right here we had to unscrew and remove a glass display case from the wall in the entryway. It was too reflective. Always carry your Leatherman and don't ask permission. You can see that it was just about the windiest day in human history that day. There's Anna Schoner. She's now a great makeup artist, and she helped me a lot on a big project just a couple of months ago. Andy Ford has a great presence, a great subtle presence. He plays the bass in the garage band scene too. Looking back at all the people who were involved, there are a few I'd really like to work with again, and Andy's one of them. Mary-Kate's really driving here. For all the windshield shots, I took the hood off the Bug and bungee corded the tripod into the trunk. VW is a rear engine, for those of you who may not know, so there's not an engine up front to deal with. The little second unit shots like this are shot weeks later with Laura driving. It's autumn now. You notice various seasons throughout the movie. It took us, several months to get all the footage. On the VX1000, we shot everything with a #1 soft filter over the lens. It gave it a more film look to it. There are some wide-angle shots that are not softened, and all the second unit stuff that I used my own little camera for, I didn't have soft filter for. I didn't know that it was going to make such a difference in the footage. In this scene, we made the mistake of mounting a double soft filter, which I had also purchased, and in post I had to try to sharpen it up. Mary-Kate was wearing a wireless mic here, and she's in the house saying her lines. But those are my footsteps that I folded in later. There's Zeke, Juana's Manx. Right after this, he moved to Hollywood without telling anyone his new address. That vacuum weighed a ton. I borrowed it from a local repair shop. Yes, years later I did return it. They hadn't even missed it. When I borrowed props like that, I sometimes said it was for a local stage production. That's a little easier to explain. See those roots? I made those roots out of hot melt glue. This is Mary-Kate's bedroom. The vacuum sound is Foleyed in. That vacuum didn't work. You can see it actually doesn't suck up stuff either. The interesting thing about this scene is that it's the first scene I wrote in the script. It's what you could call Inception Scene. I was vacuuming the house one day, and I thought how funny it is that you can't hear anything going on while you're vacuuming. Somehow my accordion popped into my mind. I was taking lessons with Kurt Weinziger at the time. The combination of a vacuum and an accordion struck me as pretty funny. So from there I just kind of put it all together. All the music books I collected from Boatman's. There's Art Van Dam. He's a famous accordionist. Autograph picture. There's the 3D accordion. I modeled and animated that accordion and rendered it over frames of video. It worked okay, I think. I didn't speed up that truck at all in post. Peter and the camera were right there. We only did that shot once. It was scary. Most of the debris is a foam core model I made. The close-ups are from a real destroyed accordion I got from Dion Hawk at Ziggy's in Phoenix. We did the oh my god shot about 20 times. The jib arm was very hard to get into a specific position. All 20 takes, Mary-Kate is perfect. She's the greatest. Most of the other shots we got in about 3 takes or so. Time was the biggest problem for this production. There are my wind chimes again. It was super bright and windy that day, but it just made Kyle and Anna look more emotional. They're actually reacting to the freezing wind. You'll never notice this, but Zeke, the cat, is actually in Anna's arms right now. Great jib shot there. Here's Laura driving around town. We talked over walkie-talkies. Right now I'm up in the Weatherford Hotel. This is before they put the balcony on. I'm shooting through the glass. Okay, right here you're about to see the Squeeze Man license plate. I had it made by a guy that I found on the internet. I made the registration stickers myself. The frame was made by flag, stamp, and engraving. Here's Arizona Music Pro's old location with an awning that I altered in the computer. There's Matt Wislin with long hair. He's a great actor. I wish I had known how great he was at the time. I just saw him in a play a couple weeks ago. Jack Shinneman. I think he came up with the flamboyance of his character, although it was definitely written flamboyantly. I didn't have to tell him to act like that. I think that was great. Here's my little portable phonograph. It was a gift, in fact, from Mary Kate's husband, Brian. The music you hear is Tito's song with scratches and low-fidelity artifacts added. This location is DDJ's daughter's music repair shop, Wendy's Winds. You know things are really going to happen when you cast one actor and she says, "Oh, my daughter just happens to run a musical instrument repair shop, just like the one you need for your movie." For most of the locations, I wish I had had a little more time to really take advantage of those locations, of the character of the locations. Wendy had a ton of cool little tools and screwdrivers and stuff to fix instruments, and shots like that would have added texture, but there was just no time. We just barely get the dialogue recorded. Paul's wearing a vest that I found in a thrift shop. I needed something I could put on Kurt later to match them up. This was supposed to be Rose's lunch break. That's why she's got the chips. All this technology, this DV technology, was so new and in demand that I couldn't even find Sony brand DV tapes to buy at the time. I had to get Panasonic. They turned out to be pretty much compatible. Later on I took a seminar that said, no, never use Panasonic tapes in the Sony equipment. You do what you have to do. The miracle format that was supposed to have no dropouts turned out to be a little flaky at times. Paul Jones really did a great job here. He listened to language tapes to prepare his accent. I like giving people a chance to meet a challenge.
I once threw out an 8-track tape of his and he didn't speak to me for days. I can't do it. It'll destroy him.
I had all the composition and all the angles in my head before we got to any location. That was part of the writing, really. I did make a few storyboard notes on the script, though. Of course, all this cartoon racket is Foleyed in later. Shuffling through blocks of plastic film containers.
That's great. Perfect.
Here's my homage to Citizen Kane. Rosebud.
It is how do you say it? An emotional conduit straight from the heart. As the player's heart beats, so beats the rhythm of the heart of the instrument.
Here's Kurt Weinziger, doubling for Paul. Kurt was my own accordion teacher. He meant a great deal to me, and he was really a sage to me on many levels. He passed away before he could see the movie. Paul's son came up to me after the premiere and said that he had noticed that those were not his father's hands playing the accordion. Those extreme close-ups of Mary-Kate we shot as inserts later on.
I'll take it.
I love that pillowcase. I found that at a thrift shop in town. It's a loud location. Arizona Music Pro is right on Route 66.
Right. Mason uses hobbies.
Okay, this is Shelly's garage. And then here's my garage. This was the first shot we shot on the very first day. The scariest part of the day was that the drummer we had set up backed out at the last second, and we had to find a replacement. I borrowed that entire drum set the morning before at 7 o'clock in the morning from the school where Dee Dee works. I wrote the lyrics to Squeezebox Blues and gave them to Kyle ahead of time. He made a tape that I okayed the day before. We recorded that song live in the garage as we shot, and that was a mistake. Didn't turn out as well as it could have. There's Rex, the dog from a short I made many, many years ago. Kyle and I decorated the garage. Anna has such a great attitude about everything. I love working with her. She puts everything into her acting, and now everything into makeup. She made some excellent effects for a recent project that we did together. There's Andy looking cool. At the premiere, I didn't even recognize him. He'd cut his hair really short. I haven't seen Kyle for years, or Mary-Kate for that matter. Hopefully distributing this thing will get people back together a little bit. Kyle's married and living in Philadelphia now. I remember having a meeting with Mary-Kate and Dee Dee very early on at Macy's coffee shop, and we were brainstorming on the cast. They had produced one of those murder mystery dinners a while back, and that's where I had seen a lot of the actors that I visualized for the roles in this movie. I mentioned I wanted Nancy for Cyrena in the library scene, but still I needed a boy in a band and his girlfriend. And they said that Nancy's son was in a band and he had acting experience, and you know, things like that. Things just started falling into place. That was one of the nights that I knew that it was all going to come together. I can't thank Peter Blystone, my DP, enough for everything he did to make Princess Isabelle a reality. We had worked together on some projects in the past. Then one day, I just gave him the script and asked him if he'd be interested in being involved. I sort of underestimated the time commitment up front, but as the weekends added up, he stuck with it. I guess he appreciated the story. Right before we started shooting, he broke his hand, but we were able to get going on schedule. He's a real ace with the camera, something I really appreciate now. having worked with a lot of camera ops since then.
Well, it is an accordion.
He made production seem effortless. He took a lot of stress off me. I knew he could always get the shot.
Challenge for your father.
Thank you, Peter. We'll work together again soon. This is the one and only day we had a makeup artist for Mary Kate. She did her own makeup and hair from then on. I used a big mirror to shine the light in from the outside. I think it looks cool.
I'm glad to be with Princess Isabelle at least.
There's the axe in the background, the one that Mary Kate uses in the dream sequence. I made that blade out of paper mache.
You and your nasty lyrics. I've had it with all you.
There's some audio overmodulation. There's a lot of audio problems. The early editing software for DV was so finicky about sound levels. You can see a little gaffer's tape there to cover up the brand name of the garage door opener. I like this setup. Laura's actually under the table holding the case up with a stick. And on my cue, she pulled the stick down. The sound effect is a fistful of dry spaghetti cracking. The super quadruple fudge bypass ice cream. I made up the container and everything, but you never get to see the label. It's one of those things that, you hope to use, but maybe it helps the actors to get into their roles. That's an insert we shot weeks later. It's our second look at Kyle's brother Max, who plays young Emery. Same glasses and a bow tie. Today, Max is preparing to unicycle 750 miles to help pay for college. There's Richard. I filtered that audio so it would sound like it's coming out of the answering machine. We were able to shoot a lot at Shelley's house. It really worked out very well. And it's windy here too. It was windy a lot during the shoot.
So, forgive me? Okay, so I guess you're out with a friend or something tonight. I know you're probably lonely.
There's an accordion mug that I still use.
You locked the doors, right? I mean, you left the light on, right? Maybe it's better if you didn't. That way burglars can't see that the princess is all alone in the house. Gosh, I hope it's not too cold. It's probably warm. It's not too
It's so cliche to use a rooster for morning, but you almost have to. There's McGaw's before they moved out. I just went around one morning and shot some neat early morning stuff downtown. There's a Weatherford before the balcony. The old bank building. Monty V. You can barely see it, but that train station has the bright blue trim instead of the dark green that it has these days. Okay, here's a mistake. That window is not broken. And notice the snow on the peaks. We worked from the snowy peaks through the summer until there was snow on the peaks again. That's a reed block from the broken accordion. I painted that little toy bug green to match the real one. It's actually not morning, but I put my big 2K light out the window and instantly it looks like morning. Backlight's very important to get that lit look. As soon as I told Mary Kate about the project, she was 100% committed. She was always ready to go, no matter what the schedule. You know, if you're working for about 6 months and getting footage, that means, among other things, she's got to keep her hair the same, and she's got to wear those same clothes over that period of time, because it's all supposed to happen in just a couple of days. To learn her lines, she actually recorded the entire script and listened to it in her car. Obviously, we couldn't break Shelley's window, so I just taped cardboard over it. Those are real crickets you hear in Shelley's front yard. For some reason, they were just singing right in the middle of the day. That's not Kyle riding that motorcycle. That's the one thing that he wasn't prepared to do. Of course, now he's riding a unicycle all over Pennsylvania. In the background, that's my old Toyota Tercel. There's Laura driving around. There's Heritage Square before they were done with it. Here we are at the library. We had about 1 hour to shoot everything we needed before they opened. There's little Sophia. She's all grown up now. If I had more actors, I would have inserted people shushing Cyrena. It would have made the point that she's talking loud in the library. That's what an aspect of this scene was about. But that's, it's another casualty of time, you could say. She's supposed to be the big, loud person, and that's obvious. But it always helps to have, let's say, a proxy on screen, somebody who's reacting the way that you should be reacting. And that would have made the point at the end when Rose says, "And my name is Rose." Then we would have had the people look up at her again. She's supposed to really shout it. Dogs really do howl at accordions. Nancy was a big help to the project. She suggested that we shoot her son Max's birthday party as Emery's. So Max got a cake that said, "Happy Birthday Emery" on it. Nancy wrote the first article about the movie, too. Of course, that's my phone book that I carried around every place because we needed phone book pages ripped out every once in a while. It's amazing how much you can get done when everybody's prepared. We wouldn't have been able to shoot this scene in less than an hour if people were still learning their lines.
What about Emery? Did you know his grandfather gave him that accordion? Do you know how he loves that thing? It's practically his whole life.
There were about 100 props I had to get together. Some as simple as a newspaper or a spoon and bowl, and some as unusual as or specialized as Herr Liedheim's nameplate or Princess Isabelle herself. Some I had to make myself. I used hot melt glue to make the roots of the potted plant that Rose had to clean up. I laser printed on acetate the names of the accordions, Isabelle, Antonia, and Angelo. Some props I had to have made, like the Accordionian's banner and the license plate frame. And the license plate. Some were borrowed, like all the accordions. Others were purchased, like a lot of the accordion knickknacks. You can see the poor condition of the headliner of that bug here. Later I replaced that myself, and I did a pretty good job. This little insert close-up of the cassette tapes was shot. I just shot that later when the car was stationary. It just kind of jiggled the camera a little bit. And yes, Mary Kate is really driving. If I remember right, Peter and I are both in the back, and I've got the monitor on my lap. It's certainly not the safest thing to do. The VW actually never went to Phoenix, or anywhere outside of Flagstaff for that matter. All the windshield shots were through the glass of my Toyota. I just bungee corded a small tripod to the passenger seat. This is Max DeMilner's real birthday party at his real house. If you look quickly, you'll see that one of those kids is blowing that party blower thing through his nose. That present that Max is opening was a real present from his parents. It was actually something he really wanted. So you can see the joy and the excitement go over his face first, and then he remembers, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be disappointed. So I think that's funny. I only had enough paper to cover the accordion case once. We had one chance to get this shot, and we got it perfect. And I wanted those little girls to kiss him on the cheek, but none of them would. We couldn't get them to kiss him on the cheek. The scratches on the what looks like film is actually, they're superimposed over the video that we shot. The way I did it was I ran a roll of Super 8 film through my old camera with the lens cap on. I sent it to the lab, and of course it came back black. Then I set it up in the little moviola and ran a pin over the emulsion side a few times as I ran it through the editor. I think I used sandpaper too. Then I projected that through the projector and shot it with the DV camera. Then in the computer I supered it over the bleached out video, so I processed and added grain to the video too. Here's Jesus to the rescue, like the cavalry. I inserted the temperature and time on through my computer. And I also changed the spelling of Calvary. Take a second look at that. Here's a little mistake. Rose was not supposed to have bought any accordions yet, but as she leaves the car, you can see that there's an accordion in the passenger seat already. And I just noticed that, there's my grip bag. Of course, that's a digitally generated sign for that store, a crazy fabric store down in Phoenix. Years earlier, Laura and I happened upon that store when we were looking for fabric for Laura's wedding dress. And I thought to myself then, this would be a great location. That's the sound of Mary Kate's pugs and my sewing machine. We just shot there during business hours. There's Dee Dee. Every location in Phoenix had a huge, ineffectual air conditioning unit grinding away. It was tough on all the audio. This is sort of a reference to one of my experiences in Oakland, California. I went to what was supposed to be an accordion shop looking for a piece for my first accordion years and years and years ago, and it turned out to be a mattress shop, and there was some old guy back there. It was actually a great accordion virtuoso. These are the stairs down to the basement of the Doris Harper White Theater here in Flagstaff. And now we're back in Phoenix at Ziggy's, the back room of Ziggy's music shop. The one and only place in Phoenix without an air conditioner.
He's passed on. Yes, only a month ago. Sometimes I still hear a beautiful melody flow through the soul.
Man, it was hot back there. It doesn't look like it here, though. Let's see, Dee Dee's wearing earrings here.
So your husband repaired a
And now she's not wearing earrings. That was a picture of me that Laura shot years ago, unrelated to this project. I think the lighting's pretty cool here. I could use a little rim light, a little backlight from the other side, and of course an eye light, but there was no time and there was no space.
I'm sorry he's gone. Really. To this country we came with nothing but Moody's accordion and a little help. And now my dear
Kartoffelrobak is a potato pancake in Polish.
I'm sure he's very happy.
Dee Dee was a lot more than just an actor in Princess Isabelle. She helped a ton in casting and production and lots of other little things. When she gets behind something, she won't quit until it's done. I recently used her for a huge 2-month-long catering job we needed for a big shoot. She's a terrific person. Of course, Mary Kate is not actually hearing anything right now. She's just acting like she's hearing something. We put in the music later. And naturally, Dee Dee is not playing either. That's Lynn Taraski from the Accordion Club playing. Great, great accordionist. Funny part about this scene is that Mary Kate had this little battery-operated handheld fan that she would use, and you know, months later when I was editing, I kept on hearing this sound, and I thought there was a buzz on the audio, and I thought I was worried that the audio was messed up, but it always stopped right when I said action. She held it off screen, and I finally figured out that it was her little fan. She was smart to bring that fan. Here's Rose with Richard Kirby. I gave him some new vacuum bags when I gave him that vacuum back. Mary Kate and I went to every music store in northern Arizona, it seems like. We just walked in and asked them if we could shoot some shots of Mary Kate running around, looking around. I usually said it was for a student film, which makes it a little easier. I didn't have any gray hair then, so it was easy to convince them that I was just, I don't know, a college student or something. There's a little beetle that Scott and Juana gave me. Accordion figurines at Ziggy's music shop. Will, the musician for these searching montages, is a friend of Paul Moore's, the dance choreographer. I went to go see Paul's dancing troupe called Human Nature in Prescott one night, and part of the show was Will singing these crazy songs and playing his little red accordion. You just gotta go out and see what kind of talent you can drum up. I still have that license plate frame on my car today. My other car is an accordion. In some of the music shops we planted some accordions, but we found some old ones too. Oh man, on the big screen, the sped up driving over, it's above Jerome. It makes people sick, particularly because they think they're in an old VW. Why Rose would go to a drum and percussion store, I don't know, but there she is. There's some great locations in Arizona. Here's Mickey Mercer. He really got into it. I wrote the script so that there would be, one person, Mary Kate, that had to make an enormous commitment, and a bunch of other people that could just come in and do little bit parts, and that overall strategy worked really well, and people really got into their little pieces. When we show the case here, you can see faintly on the top of the case, Princess. Rosebud is back.
What are you, a collector or something? An accordion's an accordion, lady.
Not exactly.
There's Peter's Land Rover and Dee Dee's Apricot Ice sedan.
Yes, but I've seen a few in second-hand
There's Julie
stores,
Hudgens.
thrift shops like
She did Great job.
Thanks.
There's Laura driving around again. We got permission to shoot at Savers during business hours. We just went into the back where, you know, all the miscellaneous junk is, and started shooting. You know, nobody's back there anyways most of the time. The light temperature is mixed, you can see. I didn't have the green gel to make to match the fluorescence.
Oh my God, finally. Exactly, Princess Isabelle.
I like the comparison here between the accordion and that cool toaster. That's just on-the-spot composition.
Searching for some phone or recently departed royalty. Maybe I should just try these other stores first. Then I'll go.
Oh, there I am. All directors should get out in front of the camera occasionally. It's very humbling. You can see my attempts at acting in the outtakes reel. Here I go in the Tercel again. I had that 1983 Tercel for 13 years. Its name was Pooh Bear. This is slightly sped up. There's some computer odometer. Laura and I had to go to Los Angeles for a wedding, and I just brought my camera and shot road signs as we drove by. I had to put Oatman in there. It's so close to Boatman. Plus, I love oatmeal. Ah, the crazy dissolve montage insanity. That's the old Goodwill by Macy's. A lot of stuff in Flagstaff has changed since we made this movie. Accordions are often associated with the lower classes, but they've always been expensive instruments. They were essentially the poor man's portable piano. It often took a good deal of sacrifice to purchase one. The free reed family includes concertinas, bandonions, and accordions, among others. Even the harmonium is a form of accordion. All these dissolves make you make the viewer pretty sick on the big screen. There, I changed the temperature on that well-known shamrock sign. 126 degrees, 52 degrees Celsius. I had to look that up so it would be accurate. She thinks she found something, but it was a typewriter. I know a lot of guys who have old VWs have turned the odometer all the way over because it's only got 5 digits. This is a planted accordion down there. Here's Laura, pricing individual buttons. You can see she's a southpaw there. I met with the manager of the Salvation Army where we shot this scene, and she said it would be fine to shoot before they opened one day. I think we were there just for an hour to shoot this scene. We had people coming to the door while we were shooting, wanting to get in and shop. I think we kept it closed for about a half an hour past their normal opening time. On one angle we had one white balance, and on the other angle we set a different white balance by accident. I tried to fix it in post. You can see that there's a little difference, but before it was a big difference. Keep in mind that the software back then was pretty rudimentary, particularly for things like color control. Little lessons like that, you know, for each location, decide on a white balance and stick to it if you're going to try to do intercuts. Paul Waddell, who was 15 at the time, I think, he was a great help. He mainly manned the boom, but he helped with lots of other little tasks too. He was always there. He was always on, you know, ready to get the job done. Amazing for a 15-year-old. He reminded me of myself, so. You can see his influence in at least one scene. There's a mannequin which appears at the beginning of the scene. Its hands are on backwards, and we thought that would be funny. It's subtle, but it was a nice touch. He came up with that. Last I heard, he was in California going to a real film school. My wife Laura, of course, was indispensable during the production. During pre-production and post-production, too. She helped in so many ways. Thank you, Laura. There's the phone book again. I love this line. Weird. Of course, Rose just missed Princess. There she is. I bought the real Princess accordion sight unseen over the internet for $300. Of course, there's actually only one accordion that looks like that. I just changed the nameplates, which I made by laser printing in reverse the name and then putting glitter behind it and then sticking it onto the accordion with gaffer's tape. Here the camera is on a jib arm and the accordions are laid out in a circle on the floor of my garage. I mounted the camera upside down for some of the shots. The same day that Mary Kate and I went around to music stores and thrift shops, we also visited every antique store that I could find. Some places I asked for permission beforehand, the local places, but for instance down in Prescott, we just walked right in and said, hey, can we do some shooting in here? Tried to get shopkeepers involved. This shop in Flagstaff has been closed and vacant for over 10 years. Mary Kate said that those shoes were, she couldn't have worn those shoes one more day. We had to be done with them when we were done with the shoot because she'd worn them right out. Going around to antique stores and music stores and thrift shops looking for accordions really had a lot to do with developing the story. I'm talking about years before I even had the idea for this movie. I got my first accordion right after college in a Salvation Army store. It only cost $15. It was pretty beat up, but I started messing around with it and learned a couple of those simple songs. Later on, much later on, I found a beautiful Titano in an antique store for quite a bit more, but it's a fine instrument. I still play it today. And thinking about that, I just realized that I bought that Titano accordion with the money that I got from selling an old VW Bug. There's another weird connection between bugs and accordions. There's an old Whiskey Row in Prescott. Again, we were finding accordions in the antique stores. I brought along a few to plant if we needed them. There we go. Here's an old accordion that was just there. That one I planted. So here I am driving around. That one was planted too. This one I just found in that shop. Look at that thing. So here I'm driving around Arizona with a carload of accordions, just like the movie. This was an early concept too. I couldn't wait to make this shot come to life. All those accordions. Here we are at Golden Memories on Milton in Flagstaff. Mary, the owner and operator, was very generous to let us shoot back there. Some shops were not so accommodating. I mean, when I was scouting one day, I asked one antique shop owner in Flagstaff if we could shoot a little scene one day in his shop, and he looked at me indignantly and said, "Well, you're going to get in the way. This is the height of the busy season." And I look around. There's no one else in the shop. I mean, you know, if you're trying to get permission, you know, make sure you're clear that it's just a little production and not, you know, you're not going to shut down his shop for a week. It would take an hour to shoot this scene. That guy's out of business now, by the way. That's funny. If you ever bought anything at an antique store and you tried to haggle, you know that they always come down just 20%. This is me playing. This is the extent of my ability on the accordion. Just making interesting sounds. There's my famous hawk call. Lilia, my 5-year-old daughter, loves this rainbow shot. It's right from my front yard at the old house.
Listen, there's a life in here. It's a living, breathing thing.
Ana Flores did a great job. She showed up wearing that kooky wig. I just said, let's go for it. Here's Sally Liebig. She's passed away too. But she got to see the movie at the premiere. This was a pretty new antique store at the time. Aunt Maud's. It's funny, it's located right next door to what would become the martial arts studio that I go to now, Water Mountain. But now Water Mountain has moved to 4th Street.
Miss, please ask for assistance. Well, I don't really play.
Mary was able to get all the jokes. She was just perfect. I basically wrote the part for her. She was my next door neighbor. That shot is unaltered. That's really the time and temperature down in Phoenix. I got about a dozen old accordions and cases from Ziggy's. The cool thing about that is that the empty cases look like more accordions. I returned them all, and they hadn't missed them while they were gone. Here's Laura driving. I should have filled the back seat with boxes or something, because that was the point of that whole shot, that there was not enough room in the back seat, so you have to load it up on the roof. That would have been even funnier. That was one of the early funny ideas that I had, was that the Volkswagen would be stuffed with accordions. Here's Bill Wu, my old college buddy. Came out from California to do this for me. We're upstairs now at Black Bart's Antiques. It's a fact that the Chinese really did invent what is called the free reed, which is the basis for the accordion. The word sin means sublime voice. for years. I thought that those old instruments didn't exist anymore. But about a year ago, Laura, Lilia, and I went down to Phoenix for an Asian festival, and there was a guy playing one. It actually was a beautiful sounding instrument. You blow into it, and there's about 24 pipes sticking straight up, and holes that you cover with your fingers, and I just thought it was so cool that that was a real instrument that I finally saw in real life. This was also the day that the Daily Sun sent a reporter and a photographer. The next morning, we were on the front page of the Sunday paper.
Cornucopia?
That was the last truck on I-40 that day. Well, maybe not all day, but for hours. We had just made it out there to Twin Arrows, and there was an accident behind us that stopped all traffic eastbound. Usually I-40 has the most trucks of any highway in the U.S. I heard that later on. And there we were, standing around trying to get that pan shot to the arrows, and there were no cars. So that was funny. We got that one, and I was waiting around to do another take, but fortunately that one worked out fine. I actually did drive the Volkswagen out there. The AC was so loud in this shop, we had to turn it off. The clerk was not happy about that. Even though we had permission from the owners themselves, you can still have trouble with the people who work in a shop. While we were shooting, Dee Dee was right outside the door, keeping people out. We were probably the last movie to shoot at Twin Arrows Trading Post before they shut it down, boarded it up. Kyle did a great job on this, in this scene. We got that broken glass. I actually went to Eric Building Supply over here on the east side to pick up that broken glass. I mean, where else do you get glass? Imagine going to a place and asking, well, can I go in the back and where your old windows are and pick up broken glass? Yeah, whatever, guy, whatever. That's a good example, though, of how you've got to have every little thing ready for when you need it. All the little props, and figure out not only what you need, but how to get it and where to get it. The background music here is an acid loop composition. I love that program. Notice Kyle's tough guy wristbands on the outside of his yellow gloves. After this scene, he was anxious to take those yellow gloves off, so he did, and unfortunately I needed him back on for the shower scene, which we shot right after this. It was virtually impossible to get those things back on. I forget how we got them back on. I think we used baby powder or something. Once again, this scene is lit with the big Lowell 2K outside the window, shining in. I don't know what I'd do without that soft light. Now, if you look real quick, when Rose walks up to the shop, you'll see the Accordion sign that I made on the computer. There it is. That's covering up the big Ziggy's sign. That's Ziggy's down in Phoenix. When she shakes the door, that's the cowbell I have on my own office door. Just put that in later. Now, just a second ago we were in Phoenix. Now we're in Flagstaff, behind Wendy's Winds, the music shop where we shot Herr Liedheim's scene.
I've got a carload of accordions and I'm tired.
Set up the jib and did a slow move in.
Music did offend even your almighty.
This was another shot that I thought of really early on in the whole process.
Heck, would you do such a mean thing like that to such a nice
I love
guy?
that talking to God
And now
kind of
what? Am I
angle.
supposed to go back to Emery and Sparkle and tell them that it was God's will that Princess Isabelle got smashed into tiny little bits? I mean, if you hate Emery's music so much,
I remember this was a day in spring when the ponderosa pollen was dumping out of the trees, and all those white butterflies we get were all over the place.
big old God heart of yours, a little drop of God blood in each one, a little passion, a little sadness. attention up there?
Peter did a great
I
job
know
on
it's
all the
not
camera
right
work.
now.
You here for the meeting? Come on.
Oh,
you're
there's
late.
Al talking to nobody in Phoenix. There's Mary talking to nobody in Flagstaff, Phoenix. Flagstaff, Phoenix,
Come on in.
Flagstaff.
I owe you one. Wait, on second thought, let's just make sure this isn't another one of your little jokes. Then we'll talk.
That's a little philosophy
I'm
there,
nothing.
talking
I was
to
just talking
myself. You know, she was talking to God, but she's talking to herself. Here we are in Ziggy's. Ziggy's is a real deal. It's a real accordion shop. And all these people are the members of a real accordion club, which I used to belong to. In fact, I was a charter member. I even played at one meeting. I'm not much of a performer, though. Those were great meetings. I would drive 2 hours down to those meetings and get back home at 1 a.m. Al Monte, the president, is the greatest guy. Carlo, the newsletter editor, is a great friend. Oh, dissolves. Everyone thinks he can fix anything with a dissolve. They are powerful, but, you know, they can also be a sort of a weapon of mass destruction. I guess I was going for sort of an Odessa Steps with this sequence, trying to make something that I didn't really have. When we were forming the Arizona Accordion Club, I seriously proposed the Accordizonians as the name for the club. But nobody got it. In fact, nobody could even pronounce it. When I finally got the idea for the movie, years later, then I used it. But still, no one can pronounce it.
Where's yours?
It's out in the car.
Ah, there's Antonia.
There it is.
Here we're still in Ziggy's. I put that curtain up.
Who is not?
And there's Ken as Tito.
You have
Early on, I was going to have the same actor play Emery and Tito as a sort of a doppelganger kind of thing. But it was too much for one guy. Too much of a commitment.
This is a kid, but who didn't try.
Ken stepped in at the last minute, sort of, and he did a great job.
of course, and he is a
That's a really tough piece, too. Long monologues.
How much is it?
Speaking of monologues are weapons of mass destruction, too.
This is no ordinary.
This is a good one, but
Go to just
it's just too long. Sometimes it's hard to
who owns these ordinary
figure out a cinematic way to
rights into his whole
tell the story.
life.
Oh, Tito.
He's so
That was Jean Monty,
I mean,
Al's
every
wife,
piece
who is now
How
passed.
many of you think you are worthy of
Accordion players generally do despise electric guitars. That's one reason why I had Spark playing guitar, and I tried to create a camaraderie between the musicians. Electric guitars, when you think of it, are really today's accordions. If you're younger than about 40, you won't know that accordions used to be everywhere. Everyone used to play an accordion. I even had a guy come to the house when I was a kid trying to get me to take accordion lessons. I mean, this guy made his living doing that, going door to door teaching accordion. Can you imagine trying that today? It wouldn't work. You could do it with guitar, though. That's kind of part of what this movie's about. When I was a kid, the accordion was just starting to turn uncool. I knew kids who played. One kid even would bring his great big accordion to school and play around Hanukkah.
what happened. The day came when he
The accordion still flourishes in most cultural music, though.
to a man carrying an
In fact, there's a great CD.
sad day.
It's really a set called Planet Squeezebox that surveys accordion music from all over the world. It was produced by Michelle Shapiro and is available from Ellipsis Arts. Little plug there. It really broadened my view of the accordion.
Many came here with nothing but a head full of melody.
Extras always get bored quickly, but unpaid extras start vanishing quickly. As you watch this scene, you can see that I shot it with that in mind. I knew that people would start disappearing. So I shot it so that I would need fewer and fewer people as we moved along. At the beginning, there's a whole crowd, and when Tito turns and says, everyone knows that a musical world is a happy world, I needed a lot of people. But at the end, it's just Carlo and Al. You just kind of don't notice that people start vaporizing. Plus, older people have a hard time standing for long periods of time, so you kind of lose them even quicker. There are two prevalent characteristics of beginner and student movies. One is that the movie begins when the main character wakes up in the morning. The other is long monologues. You write a long monologue when you've figured out what you want the movie to be about, but you haven't yet figured out a way to tell your story. I hope that my little mistakes will help others avoid them. This DVD is sort of geared toward filmmakers. The Chinese name for that instrument that Bill was talking about is spelled Shin, S-H-E-N. I had to trust Bill to pronounce it correctly. He asked me, but I'd never heard it spoken. Years later, I learned that he did pronounce it correctly. Sen, like S, like the Chinese pronounce Shaolin. Because it was spelled S-H, though, I didn't realize that that line was going to sound like original Sen. But today, I kind of like the unintended double meaning.
Kids don't want history or tradition. Well, they want newness, freedom, and individuality.
After submitting Princess Isabelle to Worldfest, at first they didn't want to put my movie in the festival. I guess it didn't meet their standards. Well, I talked to Hunter Todd, the festival director. I had been talking to him for weeks, and I made a deal with him. If I could find a venue during the festival, I could be in the festival. He did offer me a spot on some widescreen TV in some local bar, but that was not what I was interested in. I called around and I discovered that Worldfest had NAU's Klein Library Auditorium booked for the entire week of the festival, but they only had a couple of shows planned. So I went ahead and booked it for Saturday night. I got in the program as an official entry, and I put my own posters up around town and got interviewed on TV and everything. In fact, my promotion helped the entire festival a lot. We had standing room only at my premiere. We had to turn away people. At the award ceremony the next week, they gave me a finalist plaque, even though I was not really in competition. That night I learned that Hunter had been scrambling to try to get another screening of Princess Isabelle together before the end of the festival, but he couldn't pull it off. If he had just called me, I would have had it set up in a matter of minutes. See, the premiere at Klein was a free show. All the shows at Klein had to be free.
All over the world throw themselves at my papa and this magnificent instrument.
And how many brothers and sisters?
He wanted me at the Green Tree Theater where the other movies were, so that he could charge admission. The Green Tree was not set up for video, though. But if he'd let me know, I could have had the whole thing set up in an hour. Despite that, I think the whole experience turned out just perfect the way it was.
After I wear out many quality of lesser quality, my papa has Antonio.
These cutaways of Mary were shot up in Flagstaff.
Entertaining into the world, but I never reached the skill and artistry of my papa, nor the level of promise.
That joke got a huge laugh at the premiere.
Do my best to bring music into the world, and everyone knows in the musical world is a happy world.
There's a light stand in that shot. That's Al playing for Ken. in something I noticed that even the most experienced performers get a little nervous when you turn the camera on them. Al has played on stage for his whole life, and he's one of the greatest accordionists alive, really. And even he got nervous while we were shooting his hands. He did a great job. These pictures are from a great book called The Golden Age of the Accordion. Eddie Chavez, who's a great guy, gave me permission to use the photos. This is really a terrific book about everything accordion related and how it fits into the American experience. When you shoot stills out of a book, like I did for this sequence, put black paper behind the page that you're shooting, and the shadow or the image of the print on the other side won't show up. I figured that out on this shoot. The cheering after Tito's song is actually the spontaneous cheering of the cast and crew after Ken made it through a particularly long piece of his monologue. You can see it in the outtakes.
Definitely a mishap. And since then, I found myself on sort of a quest. And it's led me here. You see, my husband plays the accordion. His story is actually similar.
Al Monti and George Tisson performed the accordion duet on the fly after hearing Margie's song just a few times. Frank Melillo got in there seamlessly. He's a guitar player. It's a real pleasure working with real musicians. There's just something magical about music and musicians, and that's part of what this movie's about.
You don't want to know.
Music is the bridge between the spiritual and physical life. Beethoven said. What kind of box?
Of course, box is an informal term for the accordion.
Oh boy. Signor.
I wish I'd made that price tag more clear.
Holy
I wonder if $10,000 will ever get dated and seem cheap. It's funny, that's about how much this movie cost to make.
Not necessarily.
Each character that Rose meets emphasizes a different trait of the accordion. It takes everyone's perspective to create the whole instrument. If it's not painfully obvious, the accordion in Princess Isabelle is a metaphor for the American experience. Okay, here we are back in Flagstaff, behind Wendy's Winds.
Thanks a lot. What am I going to do? I've got to buy that damn magic box, even if it does cost as much as a dozen Volkswagens. Must be worth it.
You know, I'm still not sure why anyone, would want to go to all the trouble to tell a story by making a movie. It's insanely complex when you dive in. I mean, just about every other medium is easier. But I guess some stories just have to be told this way.
Una rosa senza spina, non è un fiore, ma un angelo. A rose without thorns is not a flower, it is an angel.
You can tell I love Arizona. Here's a little Blues Brothers homage from the scene where Jake and Elwood are being chased all night long back to Chicago. There's a dip to black and silence, just like this. I've always loved that edit. I found an opportunity to use it here. There's the peaks. We're back home. Those smudges on the window are from Chloe's nose. I used to drive her around everywhere. That's my little Sheltie. There's some nice Flagstaff houses. I love Flagstaff. I got as much local scenery into the movie as I could. There was a big dropout in the magical dropout-less media of DV, right in the middle of a funny line here, and I didn't get another take of it, so I had to cut it out. Spark asks Rose, "You couldn't find a Motel 6? What off-ramp to the moon did you take?" I don't know. I was sorry to see that one go. Right there, that's my original $15 accordion that Mary Kate's holding right now. Accordions, just like vacuums, are heavy, so I made sure that my actors had to carry both upstairs repeatedly. At the premiere, I showed Princess Isabelle without the letterbox masking, which I did just for fun for this special edition. And the theater at the Klein Library Auditorium at NAU is set up for showing computer images. So not only were the pixels a slightly wrong aspect ratio, making everyone look a little taller and thinner, it showed the entire screen, which your television does not actually show the entire screen. And I had someone come up to me, maybe it was months later, I think it was months later, I happened to meet someone, and she mentioned, she said to me, "Oh, I saw the boom in that one shot." What do you say to that? That's nice. I mean, I could find 100 other things wrong with the movie, but it's not really a pleasant conversation. Later on, I realized that I didn't have the presence of mind to bring this up when I was face to face, but later on, I realized that sure, she saw the boom in that one shot, but what she didn't realize was that how many times the boom was not in the shot. I mean, think about it. In every shot that there is dialogue, the boom is hovering just out of frame. She didn't know that because, she didn't see it. That's sort of existential, don't you think? So after all, I was happy. I was glad that she pointed that out because it led to a bigger realization. Today, I have mixed feelings about the few instances of adult language in Princess Isabelle. I personally try not to use such words, but I guess I felt that I needed to punctuate Rose's frustration and plus highlight her hypocrisy by juxtaposing her use of bad words with her attempts to stop Spark from cursing. At the end, no one is cursing. Another subtle transformation. Although it doesn't really read on screen, I did actually let all the air out of that tire, and Kyle really did fill it all back up. It's a little known fact that you can fill up a car tire with a bicycle pump. I've done it many times. Here's the little accordion locket. All the various photographs in the show are actual prints. The late 90s was a world without digital photography. Most of the shots that include photos, like the family portrait and in the bedroom and young Emery, and this one of Rose and Spark, these cutaways were shot late in production because the photos had to be taken when the opportunity arose, and then sent to the lab and printed, and then sent back to be enlarged. That's apple juice. Laura and I waited in the parking lot of the visitor center for a train, and then she quickly drove out to the crossing, and I jumped out and started shooting angles that could conceal that she's driving and that there was no one in the passenger seat, because Kyle is supposed to be in there. And then I hopped back in, and we drove off when the train was gone. Once again, Mary Kate is really driving with a tripod and camera sticking straight up out of the trunk. VW Bugs are great cars to shoot this kind of thing in because the hood comes right off. You can just unscrew it, and the windshield is flat. There's a shot of the rig in the scrapbook section of this DVD. Mary Kate hated driving that Bug. It was very difficult for her. Not only shifting gears, but the brakes were not that great, and steering was tough on her. I kept it and drove it for years afterwards. Okay, this is Black Bart's. This is the second location of the first day of production. If you look quickly, you'll see Kyle's father, Chaz, in the background. There's Chaz back there. He's a good friend now. Self-promotion is a big part of the fun of independent filmmaking. All the press I got, newspaper, TV, whatever, was a product of press releases, phone calls, meetings with editors and stuff. I got pretty good at giving interviews and talking up the project. It may not be very glamorous part of making an independent film, but people have got to know about it to see it. Here's Erin playing a role that as it turned out, I wish I had made it, I could have made it much bigger because she did such a great job, but it was fun just the way it was. I bought that crazy little toy off the internet. I added the light inside the nose. It's really making that sound by operating that little accordion. The crowd sound that you hear in the background is from an accordion club meeting that I recorded. There's Susan Johnson, Paul Jones's wife, actually. I used her recently in another project. After production, I got in a funk about editing, and one night I was talking to my friend Ed Lambert, and he came up with some motivation so I'd finish the piece in time to submit it to Worldfest. We agreed that I would donate $300 to an unnameable, unworthy cause if I didn't have it done in time. I got it done. And there he is. There's Margie Light's hands. The music guided by Margie Light was recorded live on the location. This one actually turned out really good. This is one of those scenes that, when I look at it, I almost can't believe it all worked. I mean, I'm pulling footage from, I think, about 4 different days, and integrating music. Someone who looks like they're playing and actually is not playing. Pretty crazy. Margie really identified with the story. She was an enormous help with this very important scene. She researched the song and put together the musicians and rehearsals and everything. She was very camera shy though, but agreed to do the handwork, fortunately. In the scrapbook section, there's a picture of her. It's hard to get real musicians to continue to smile because they get into the music so much. Oh, she asked how much is it? That's my hand holding the price tag. I just needed that insert, and while I was editing, I shot it while I was sitting at my desk. Here we are back at Pulliam Airport. The airport just recently installed that X-ray machine and metal detector. I mean, before it was just walk in, sit down. Between flights, they opened up that big roll-up gate and just let us mess around in there. There was a TV going in the waiting room, though, so I climbed up on some chairs and unplugged it. Of course, this was all years before Homeland Security and all that stuff. Notice that our VW really does have a rear view mirror. I hate when they take the rear view mirror off in movies. Emery was supposed to have a Minnesota accent all through the picture. You can hear it a little bit here. I'm riding in the back of Peter's Discovery, directing through walkie-talkies and listening through a wireless mic. The camera is just rolling with a hardwired lavalier in the car with the actors. It worked fine.
Mostly? Is Sparkle okay?
Now Richard is wearing the accordion tie.
And Elton's alive and well.
Yes, yes.
And the princess.
There was a mishap.
Shelley's house is so perfect. I just want to express again that she really made this picture possible. There just happened to be a light socket at the top of the stairs where I could put this shelf. It wasn't really practical. You wouldn't want that shelf there all the time, but it sure worked for the movie. It's exactly what I visualized, with a little lamp over it and everything. Uncanny. Scott Nicholson made that shelf for me. So we walk from Shelley's house into Mary Kate's house
These are yours, dear.
with the big light outside the window.
And I've learned a lot.
I want to say thanks again to Dion Hawk of Ziggy's for loaning me all those accordions.
Those two are from Prescott. That one's from a junk shop outside Cottonwood. And believe it or not, that one came out of a garbage can in Nima. That one's from a pawn shop in Tucson. This one's from Jerome. An old lady in Gila Bend gave me the sparkly one for free. And in Snowflake, I traded two little ones for that big red one over there.
But what am I supposed to do with them? I mean.
You can play them, dear, until
Oh, there's Shelley's house. There's Mary Kate's house.
Man, this thing weighs a friggin' ton.
That's Brian's credit card. I didn't charge anything on it. I just used it as a prop.
And find good homes for all your little orphans.
this one, Emery darling, is yours.
That shadow on the wall back there is not a boom shadow. It's a shadow of the pull cord for the overhead fan. I should have fixed that.
Yes, I am.
I bought a little camera stabilization rig for this movie, but we only used it on this one shot, and it kind of worked. It worked all right. I think Peter could have done a fine job just by hand holding. Okay, here's Paul and his troupe. We had some playback. It was just my ghetto blaster playing Margie's song, but it got everyone dancing. You can see up in the sky behind the dancers the dark clouds and everything, and it was just about to monsoon, and here we are in the middle of the street dancing around like crazy people. Gary Valentine, the driver of that beautiful blue rig, lived just down the street from me at the old house, and I always saw that gorgeous truck drive by in the morning and in the evening, and you could say that I kind of wrote the part of the truck for Gary Valentine's truck. And there you have it. We all had a great time with Princess Isabelle. I'm glad I'm finally getting it on DVD for everyone. For years afterward, I would get recognized around town. There were about 400 people at the premiere, and you know, I was walking down the street one day, for instance, and a couple from a motorcycle said, "Yay, Princess Isabelle!" I mean, this was years later. You know, I really meant it at the premiere when I said that it was Flagstaff's film. So I hope everyone enjoys this DVD. It turned out to be a lot more work than I thought it would be, both externally and internally. And I'd just like to say thanks again to everyone. Thank you. During this credit section, the audience at the premiere was going wild. I didn't have names for all the characters. Some were just woman in the thrift store. So I decided to do the end credits like an old movie. Princess Isabelle is actually supposed to be something of a throwback anyways. I even considered making Princess Isabelle all black and white. So this method of giving all the key characters credit worked out perfectly, and it gave everyone a chance to cheer for them.
Nothing. I was just talking to myself.
Mary Kate wrote this song about Princess Isabelle, and she included it on her own CD, and we can put it in. We put it in the end of the movie too. I had everything in place except for the house. I spoke to everyone I knew to help me find a house with stairs leading to the front door with a window. I thought this configuration was pretty common, but it's not. One day I met my friend Jim Corson on the street, and I asked him if he knew of such a house, and he gave me his sister-in-law's number. I met with Shelley Silbert soon afterward. I remember driving up to her house one night, walking up to the front door and seeing through the glass the stairs that led straight up away from it. It was perfect. It was a very nice house, and I had originally pictured the family as being, sort of on the lower end of the middle class scale, but I think it worked fine. Shelley was very generous. She just left the house to us for 2 entire weekends while she was out of town. So again, I'd just like to say thank you, Shelley Silbert. Here's one thing I really regret. I can't believe I misspelled Rick Pendleton's name in the credits. Rick was my mentor in the old days. He really showed me the ropes of production. We shot everything, everywhere, all over the world, and I don't know why I didn't know how to spell his name. To fix it, it means rendering all the credits over again, and you can see they're kind of complicated credits. So I'm sorry, Rick, but you know what you mean to me. At the premiere, I made a joke that I had to get the movie down to 90 minutes, but I already had 60 minutes of special thanks, which for a little movie like this, you really see how many people it takes and how many people you have to thank when it comes down to it. None of these people got paid for anything. Peter, who was, there by my side through the whole thing. And a lot of the crew was there all the time. Of course, Laura helped a ton, before, after, during, all the time. I really owe a deep debt of gratitude to everyone who helped make this movie. In the past, I've stated that the budget for Princess Isabelle was about $10,000. That's about right if you include buying and fixing up the VW Bug, buying the pretty expensive DV editing equipment at the time, and software, and buying lunch for everyone, driving around, buying props, lights and equipment, a lot of stuff that I've been able to use for years afterwards. Even printing the scripts, and all the little things that go into it. I didn't keep any kind of records. What went toward Princess Isabelle, what went toward my business at the time, which was computer animation. It did put me in debt overall over that period of time for about $10,000. I still use much of that equipment, as I said. Keep in mind that no one got paid for any of their work. No one got compensated for gas or anything. I just paid for lunches, Oh yeah, and there was that one night in a horrible hotel down in Phoenix. People are very generous when they believe in something. I'd like to dedicate this project to my own accordion teacher, Kurt Weinziger. He was so much more to me than just a music teacher. So, thank you, Kurt. I really miss you.